Welcome back, brothers, ladies, and tourists, to another episode of the Chapter House, the Old Glory Club's look into the men and the chapters that make up the Old Glory Club. Joining us tonight are the Overmountain Men of East Tennessee, our third chapter in the Tennessee region. So if you're in Tennessee and you're not already a part of a chapter, you don't really have an excuse. There's three to choose from. Come on, guys. And they have a kind of smorgasbord of representation. So, guys, please introduce yourselves.
Okay, sure. There's four of us in the room here. We're all gathered around the microphone, so we'll pass the mic around. But I'm Alex. I'm the president of the Overmountain Men. We'll just go down the line here.
This is Blues Driver, the treasurer.
I'm H. Martins. I'm a member. I do a lot of historical stuff, I guess.
I'm the Glistener. I'm the secretary.
The Glistener. That sounds like a supervillain that we'd get in the Venture Brothers, and reminds me of a glazed donut. How did you get that name?
I think I came to me in a dream. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, based. That's where all the best stuff comes from. So, welcome, guys. I'm glad that all four of you could be joining us on this auspicious episode. I did have a quick question before we dove into the chapter proper. How's Eastern Tennessee recovering now from the event last year?
I know northeastern Tennessee more so, and like near Bristol was hit more heavily. Knoxville, I think got pretty lucky in terms of how directly we got impacted. I mean, there was some flooding, but it wasn't, we thankfully didn't have any casualties. I think is the I-40 pass, is that still, do you have to still divert around it?
It's fixed more or less,
okay.
But, it is passable.
Okay.
Yeah, I know for a while there, the I-40 corridor was just pretty much washed out. Was that the TVA that you guys were relying on to get that back up and running?
No, it probably would have been the state, either the State Department of Highways or TDOT.
Yeah, when I was out, I remember TDOT.
Yeah, TDOT.
All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that at least you can traverse the area again. So, Overmountain Men, you weren't content with two chapters in Tennessee, and you needed this third one due to the geographical distance, or maybe you just didn't like the other guys in Tennessee. What brought together the Overmountain Men?
Well, I know historically Tennessee's seen itself as a three-region state, and so it was just kind of a natural formation, really. It just kind of happened. There wasn't really any conspiracy to break it up into three chapters immediately. Early settlement, you had East Tennessee was the first, and then West Tennessee, or then Middle Tennessee, and then West Tennessee, and that happened over a course of decades, and it's always seen itself as three distinct regions, not only because of settlement, but also because of geography to a degree.
And I would say I did meet up with the old Hickory volunteers, the Nashville guys, and I met them, and likable, no hard feelings there, but yeah, it's a long drive, so it just made sense geographically.
Now, I know that in our modern day, culture is kind of homogenizing or leveling to whatever's on the television. But would you guys say that there's still distinct cultures between these three regions?
I would say, yeah, there are some distinct cultures. I have less experience with Middle Tennessee, and I grew up around West Tennessee, but I can say that East Tennessee is certainly distinct from the other two parts of the state. For one thing, it's more mountainous, and so you get a lot more Appalachian culture out this way, and that really does bring distinction. It's just not quite the same.
Yeah, I'm a transplant, so I can't comment.
Well, I mean, there must be something keeping you there, so that's wonderful. Yeah, up in the mountains there, you guys have a lot of opportunity to engage in some fun things, including cryptid hunting, which I'm sure you can't talk about. But what are some of the things the Overmountain Men have busied themselves with since you guys incorporated?
So glad you asked. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we've actually, I think we're pretty blessed as a chapter because a lot of us, there's about 15 to maybe 20 of us that are in this geographical area. So we've actually met up quite often outside of just regular meetings. We've had a boat day at Norris Lake, which is awesome. Did some cliff diving out there and, spent the day out in the water. We did a hike and just want to highlight, we were supposed to be doing an inter-chapter hike with the NGS guys, and I understand that they're pretty spread out across the state, so it was kind of hard communicating and getting those guys together. But they did bail on us, so we're gonna have to challenge them to a paintball match one of these days. So
Defend your honor.
yeah, we have to defend our honor. So we're calling those guys out, but we have some hikes planned, and we've helped a couple of our members out with some personal stuff. Like one of them was moving out of his house and he had to repair his subfloor. So, we helped him rip that out. And, we're just trying to be, the best brothers and neighbors that we can be to one another and, brotherhood in general. We've had our initiation that actually happened, official initiation last month. And we try to make that as symbolic as possible to the original Overmountain Men, which Martins can speak to probably extensively.
Yeah, sure, I can talk about that a little bit. Yeah, we did our initiation. We had in mind to, we're the Overmountain Men, and we wanted to be representative of our forebearers. And so we had an initiation that tried to recreate some of the difficulties of the original Overmountain Men. And for those who don't know, the Overmountain Men were a series of pioneers, settlers from the 1770s and 80s that settled in Tennessee and North Carolina. And there was this major named Major Ferguson on the other side that was invading North Carolina. And he had threatened a lot of their property. And there were also Cherokee attacks that were encouraged by the British. And so it was a significant threat. So all of these frontier settlers gathered together and they crossed the mountains in this arduous trek, and they just whooped, Major Ferguson. And it ended up being an extremely pivotal point in the southern front of the Revolutionary War because it repelled the British.
So do you guys, for this initiation rite, do you import Brits to beat on, or how does that work?
Well, we do. So we can't give away too much, but we do definitely have a villain that's Major Ferguson, and he has a role to play in our initiation. So beyond that, we have to be secretive about it. But yeah, there is a British element in that sense.
Well, that's very cool. Any historic reenactment of whooping the British ass is good in my book. I also really appreciate the chapter house's first inter-chapter call out, and I gotta say, I love the NGS boys, and I'm very disappointed in them for bailing on you. So, can you give us a little bit more background information on the original Overmountain Men? So they came down out of the mountains and they beat back some fop and some savages, and what kind of became of them after that?
Okay, so the original Overmountain Men, like I said, they were just a lot of settlers, and the territory at the time was, it was under the control of North Carolina, although there was some dispute about that at the time because North Carolina couldn't protect them from Indian attacks during the war. And so what ended up happening is you had a couple of militia colonels from Tennessee. So these would have been, Campbell and Shelby and like John Sevier, and they got together and they rendezvoused at, I believe, Sycamore Shoals with a North Carolina militia leader named McDowell. And, Major Ferguson and the British knew that these forces were going to come get him. And so he entrenched on top of a mountain called Kings Mountain. And when they marched, they used tree cover and just annihilated the British forces quickly. And because they annihilated it, it was highly significant. Afterwards, a lot of the men went home because they were just militia. But certainly their contribution was significant because the British invasion of North Carolina was pushed back. And so this gave them a foothold in the Southern Front to repel the British out of the South. And this would lead to a series of events that allowed Washington to end up at Yorktown. So it was a highly significant event, and the rallying of the frontiersmen very much embodied, the future of the country and the frontier.
So the original Overmountain Men had a big part to play in the shaping of the revolution. Would you say that they kind of pioneered the ambush tactics that were used during the revolution, or had that been going on for a while?
I'm sure that it went on in some other cases, but they definitely didn't, march in force blocks, if that's what you mean. They definitely used more, because they'd been fighting Indians on the frontier, and so they had to adapt tactics to that fighting style. And so because of that, they certainly had an advantage when it came to dealing with collected troops.
And so after the revolution, most of these men just became settlers. Did they keep pushing west?
As far as I know, most of the men settled this area fairly well. So a lot of the officers that were involved in the militia organization of the Overmountain Men later became, congressmen and governors. So John Sevier was the first governor of the state of Franklin, which was an independent government that basically seceded from North Carolina. And he was a popular governor in Franklin, and then years later, he became the governor of Tennessee for several years. Also, you had another guy named William Blount that was fighting in the Overmountain Men, and William Blount became the territorial governor of the Old Southwest in the 1790s. A lot of the other officers became early statesmen in the state of Tennessee. So these are the kind of guys that, Tennessee counties are going to be named after.
Well, that's really interesting. So obviously you guys named your chapter after them. My question is, was that name like just right on the forefront? You're like, oh, we should just choose this one. Are the Overmountain Men well known in Tennessee, or is that kind of an esoteric history sort of thing?
I would say honestly, sadly, it's a little more esoteric than it ought to be. You don't meet too many people, even in East Tennessee, that would know who the Overmountain Men were, even though what they did was significant. It's very much a regional identity.
I mean, everybody knows John Sevier, the name, because of Sevierville, Sevier County, and they know Blount from the county. So, I mean, these names are around, but I don't know if people know their accomplishments or where they came from.
Yeah, or whether or not they care, such as the deracination. So you guys, have you taken anything from the Overmountain Men of old into the way that your chapter runs, the things that you do, besides just the initiation?
I think it's more of like a spirit animal type thing. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. So there's definitely aspects of their bravery, their courage, because again, oh, go ahead. Okay. Well, I was gonna say the Major Ferguson, he threatened to burn their homes to the ground. I mean, that was the threat. And I think it might even be in the quote in the webpage that we have on the OGC website, but he came out here and said, lay down your arms and surrender, or I'm gonna come burn your homes down. And their reaction was, let's go grab our rifles and go kill this guy. So I think in that sense, they're inspirational figures, but in terms of, they're a very irregular militia type style force, and not much is known about them, so they don't necessarily inform our day-to-day activities as a group.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. They didn't exactly keep minutes, but yeah, that's a great little bit of history. Was there anything else you guys wanted to dive into with Eastern Tennessee? Like, tell us about the region, the people, where you guys draw from.
Well, we might want to mention a little bit about some of the major metro centers here. So we're in the Knoxville area, the people here speaking to you, and that's where the majority of our members are. But the major metro areas, there's Chattanooga in the south, there's Knoxville in the center, and there's the Tri-City area in the north. And we have people in all three metro areas. The Chattanooga guys, I want to in particular mention, give them special mention because they've oftentimes drove up to us and met us at some of our meetings. Many of them have actually traveled up multiple times. So that's a 5-hour round trip drive. So I just want to say kudos to them for their dedication. And, our vision is that eventually Chattanooga, Knoxville, and the Tri-Cities area will all have their own chapter. It just makes sense, I think, in terms of the travel time. And that's what we want to encourage. So the Chattanooga guys are well on their way. In the Tri-Cities, they're a small group of guys, and we're trying to encourage that to snowball. But just in terms of the area itself, I wanted to point that out as we have these big population centers. And everybody in Eastern Tennessee is within an hour or so of one of those three.
We've got guys from Greenville too,
True.
That's like probably over an hour away.
Yeah, it's not an exhaustive list, but just in terms of the major metro areas, those are the three that I really envision as being future chapters.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, even within that slice of Eastern Tennessee, that is a large geographic area. Do the Chattanooga guys get any exposure to the James Oglethorpe guys to your south in Georgia?
I don't know if they've met with them, actually. They would be right across the border there, so it would be real quick for them to get down to Atlanta or whatever. I have to say I don't know. I don't think that I've heard anything about it, but highly possible.
Yeah, they could also swing down and say hi to the Alabama boys. You guys got a good little cross section right there. James Oglethorpe. You guys got Nathaniel Green. It's all right there. That's pretty cool. Have you guys talked to Nathaniel Green besides just that initial aborted event on collaborations?
We had basis of them actually.
We did. We were on the was it Green Tavern?
Yeah.
Yep.
I might have missed that one. Was that one of the cryptid ones? Oh, sorry, I missed that. I talked over you. Please repeat what you said.
Back in July, but after some pretty nasty storms that washed out the main roads to the Smoky Mountains, that actually is the reason we had to replan and reschedule this last hike that we had. But we actually started our own kind of side chat called Dixie chapters, and like you said, that kind of involves like the Georgia chapter and the Alabama chapter as well, and hopefully the Tri-City guys and the Chattanooga guys as well, so we can get a conference started or some other type of event, Civil War reenactments, you name it. We just want to meet up with these guys and network.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole idea of the organization, right? Did any of you make it out to the East Coast Forum?
I don't think so.
Well, that's a bummer. Was the when you were on the Green Tavern, was that one of the cryptid episodes?
I don't think so. I think it was kind of just chit chat. It wasn't anything super
kind of jawing, yeah. I mean, do you guys have some interesting cryptids out in Eastern Tennessee? I mean, you got the mountains right there. You have to.
There's some Bigfoot stuff. There's a lot of weird like Appalachian kind of folklore. I know there are a lot of abandoned towns too.
The biggest, cryptid adjacent thing would be the missing 411 stuff for the Smokies.
Yeah.
So you get all kinds of stories around that, but any general Appalachian, horror stories.
I think I may have had a Bigfoot encounter, but it was out in like West Tennessee. It wasn't out here. So.
Oh yeah, so that doesn't count. So you said there's a lot of abandoned towns out there. Is that just like old mountain towns, or was there a lot of mining in that area?
There was some coal mining, but it was really popular in the early 20th century. A lot of resort towns kind of popped up in the Smokies, big into like the kind of mineral spring water. People thought it probably is somewhat restorative, but it was a big thing, and then it just kind of fell out of fashion. So a lot of the towns just became abandoned.
Yeah, I see that the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is quite large and very much not roaded So I imagine that there's a lot of land there to get lost in. Is that something you guys get into?
Yeah, we do some hiking here and there. Like I said, we've only been on one, I guess, official Overmountain Men hike. One of hopefully many future ones. Yeah, I mean, I'm a transplant as well. I think most of the people in the group are transplants, so we're definitely taking it slow. We definitely want to explore that area as much as we can, but we only have so much time, unfortunately.
Yeah, what's the I mean, you said you have about 20 guys, is that correct?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say, I don't know, maybe like half of them, maybe a third of them are probably from East Tennessee or at least Tennessee, and the rest of them, I'm from Florida. There's a lot of out-of-staters there, but we found our home out in East Tennessee. We love it there. There's so much natural beauty. The politics are good. It's affordable, and I think everyone else has kind of sought that out, and it's probably changing it for the worse. But hopefully we can put a damper on that.
Well, a lot of the transplants are COVID refugees like myself, and a lot of us came from places that are much worse than Eastern Tennessee, and so I think overall the migration might be a net positive. I mean, there's a lot of people who come here from failed states, and they're very passionate about not allowing that to happen here. So it's not all bad to have all this new migration. But I think that's what a lot of us are here for, is that we lived places that were much worse and we were looking for something better.
Yeah, the Memento Mori guys gave us a very bird's eye view about the state of Tennessee politics. And, as far as state governments go in the United States, it sounds like Tennessee might be one of the best that we've got. I mean, I do any of your members look in on state politics, or are they just I mean, do you have anyone who's interested in that sort of thing?
Yeah, we not in the room presently, unfortunately, but we are definitely focused locally on the politics side of things over here.
I mean, I do know a thing or two about state level politics. The governor does. He's in charge of most of the managerial apparatus, and the lieutenant governor gets to determine who's on the Senate Judiciary Committee, who gets to determine what laws are going through the state. And so there's not really a whole lot that could be done for the state outside of large scale organizing. So
when you say not a whole lot to be done, do you mean like there's not a whole lot that needs to be done because it's being done well, or being able to change it requires large scale organization?
It's kind of hard to uproot the boomers good old boy system. And so if Bill Lee wants to get on TV and invite all of the businessmen from New York down here, well, there's nothing we can really do to rein that in, because it's his prerogative to do things like that. So short of electing a better governor, which there aren't many good choices currently for that, or swapping out the lieutenant governor, you're not going to get a lot of changes. Tennessee's not a good bottom-up organizing state. You can't introduce ballot measures. You can't do anything like that.
Interesting. So would you guys say that the Tennessee GOP suffers from the same thing that afflicts the national GOP of being completely out of touch and behind the times?
I would say that they are probably out of touch and behind the times, but the Tennessee GOP is at least smart enough to try to cater to MAGA types. So it is, as bad as we've had a supermajority in the legislature for a really long time, and states like Florida and Texas do a lot more in many cases than our state does. So it wouldn't be hard for them to get a fire lit out under them, but they don't really do that much.
So, would you? I mean, this doesn't really seem to be the state where like the big blue cities are just ruining the time of everyone else in the state. and Nashville being the woo girl center of the United States. But that seems to be mostly tourism. Do you guys feel kind of like a negative draw from Nashville?
It's certainly been a problem, because it is kind of turning into boomtown status at this point, because a lot of important functions of state government, a lot of industry is there, but it's also like incredibly expensive to live there at this point. I remember going to downtown Nashville in like 2017, and it's got a completely new skyline now. So I think I think Memphis is probably more of an issue in the state, because I don't know what the situation is now. I haven't been there in a while. I'm originally from Memphis, and I don't know what the situation is now regarding with the National Guard being there, but it was like, I remember in 2015, 2016, there was like, you couldn't go out to Beale Street at all. You couldn't go to downtown Memphis. It was just a war zone.
Yeah, your brothers in the Memento Mori gave us a rundown of kind of what that was about. So check out that episode, and dear listener, please, if you haven't, do the same. But yeah, I mean, it with Tennessee being so incredibly large, I imagine that you wouldn't have a lot of time to get out there. Like, as somebody who was a native of Connecticut, my whole state takes about 3 hours to get from the western edge to the eastern edge. So it's kind of hard for me to, imagine how long it takes you guys to get to Memphis.
It's like 5.5 hours on a good day.
Yeah, no thanks. But yeah, guys, that's some interesting stuff with the government. So it's not really like an exemplar status. Like, we don't want to have other states kind of look to you guys and model themselves after you, but at least you're keeping the insanity at bay a little bit. How does it feel on the ground in Knoxville?
Well, we just had elections last night, and they did not go particularly well. Honestly, the biggest change that we've had lately is that for many decades in Knoxville, you could only do at-large voting. There was no district voting in Knoxville. This last election, was it? It was yesterday, wasn't it?
It was yesterday.
Good grief. Yesterday was the first time we had district council voting in decades, like since the 60s or the 50s. But we only gained one council seat, which that's bad, but it's better than it was, which is insane. But we also rejected a sales tax increase because the city likes to spend money on naughty nonprofit projects.
Yeah, just to clarify what he's talking about with the at-large voting. So the way it used to work was you would vote in your district for the primary, but the general was citywide, right? So for the general, the entire city got to vote on your district's city council member. And so what would happen is the Democrats would come out and vote in the general, and we'd end up getting either the worst conservative or we get a Democrat. So that has changed. That's been a state law that changed that. And so now we actually have a fighting chance, but it's going to be slow progress. I think we had one victory, and then hopefully there'll be more to come.
Well, I mean, with any political activity in this kind of weird, wonky, not democracy, not representative republic, weird oligarchic state that we're in as a country, just getting people out to vote seems to be the I'm in my late 30s, and ever since I was in elementary school, they've been drilling into us, you got to get out to vote, get your friends out to vote. It's never, people don't actually do it. So, the future belongs to the people who show up. I'm just glad that you guys don't have to worry about the Democrats paying people to vote in your particular district. So I'd consider that a step in the right direction. So overall, would you guys say you're pretty bullish on the history or on the future of Tennessee at the moment?
I think I am. I certainly am. I just want to caution that we've had a lot of growth in the past 5 years since COVID, and more so since, I mean, even before then. And that's got to be guided really carefully. I want to analogize to Florida for a second, because Florida is like, they're just as much of a boom state, maybe even more, but it's like the median age of a home buyer there is like 40. And that's something I want that this state needs to avoid if we want to keep growing like naturally, not just with people moving in.
Has like international finance or like the BlackRock taken notice of cities outside of Nashville and started buying up large portions of the residential real estate?
Yeah, I know there was an article that came out. I think Carl Dahl wrote it on Collierville, Tennessee, which I'm from there originally, and it's 100% correct. Like, there's a bunch of apartment blocks went up overnight to house the new imported workforce that they brought in to work at FedEx.
Amazing. There was a FedEx hub in the town that I grew up in, and there was no shortage of young white men who wanted to work there. I am skeptical that FedEx needed to import people for that purpose, but that's the way it goes. Guys, what's the deal with Gatlinburg?
Traffic.
Well, it's basically a tourist trap town. There are other places you can go for a good East Tennessee experience, like Knoxville, but yeah, Gatlinburg. I guess you can ski there sometimes.
It's wacky stuff.
Yeah, if you're in the mood to sit in traffic for like 45 minutes to go to like a Hatfield and McCoy dinner, that's the place to go.
That you're really selling it, boys. Is that like Boomer Central?
Kind of. I mean, sure. Everyone wants to go there. Like there is some skiing over there.
There's
and
water parks.
There's Dollywood nearby. There is hiking. You'll see your bears. Walk across the street, and that always gets everybody up in excitement. It is a cool little place, but like every place that since COVID, any place that's really desirable, it's just boomed, and the traffic is just unbearable at this point. So you kind of, at least the locals, they try to avoid it.
Yeah, I went 2 years ago. My cousin was in town from Indiana for fall break, and I guess that was the weekend. And I went to downtown Gatlinburg. There were a lot of nons there. It was pretty absurd. It smelled like weed, man. It was depressing, honestly. I remember going in like 2014.
I'm afraid to go back up to Gatlinburg because if there are as many Indians there as there were in the Smokies.
There were a lot. I think apparently there are also a lot of them are like business owners now there too.
Now that you say that, I just remember that the last time I went to Gatlinburg, I walked into a little, odd basement shop and bought a cheap like $20 switchblade off of some guy that didn't speak English.
Family fun.
What's the merchant tasks?
Yeah, it starts with a B. It's some ridiculous name.
It's not Brahmins, is it?
No.
We're fact checking.
Or maybe it starts with an M. I don't know. Whatever. Indians are gross. I mean, I'm sad to hear that you guys are getting that effect up there as well, or down there, I suppose. How is Knoxville similarly afflicted by the rising tide of color?
No, I would say though, back to the Smokies, during our hike, not to just make it a blackpilling stream, but I would say probably 30% of the entire park was probably Indian, I would say.
And the other 30 was Chinese.
And the other 30, yeah, there's probably no 30% Chinese. So I really do think it's imperative that we start charging, non-Americans a higher rate to visit these parks, because I think someone who's been in this country for generations, his family's been in this country for generations, shouldn't have to pay the same price, Ling Meng from China to go, see the Smoky Mountains or, Old Faithful or something like that. I think that's ridiculous, because it just makes our entire trip unbearable. We had to wait in line to find a parking spot for like 40 minutes, and
we had someone turn back because they couldn't find parking.
Yeah, exactly. We actually had a member turn away because just the parking was terrible. People parking on the side of the road where they shouldn't be, just taking pictures. yeah, it's kind of a mess.
And they weren't bussed in. This wasn't like a tourism busing. I think these people were all H-1Bs because they were driving there in Teslas.
Yeah.
I saw them in Teslas and stuff like that. So they're all driving in cars. So.
Do y'all see much of that around town here, though? I mean, I don't see too many Indians when I'm out and about. You see some Mexicans every now and then.
There, I mean, maybe think more Oak Ridge. I know where I work, there's a decent amount that are on the technical staff, and we've been having some issues, to say the least.
I mean, the whole country's moving in the same direction. It's sad to hear. Have you guys noticed like an increase in trash in the national parks, or has that been avoided so far?
With the government shutdown and everything, I didn't see a whole lot of trash. Thankfully, we only went on one trail. And it's weird because the farther you go out into these trails, the less nons you actually see. So it's kind of interesting. They just kind of drive up there to take pictures, and
they're not there to hike or exercise or see nature or any of that. They're there to get like a screenshot for Instagram or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean that makes sense. With their grip strength, all they could probably grab is the phone. One of your brothers, Chief Slingin' Beef, from another chapter, wants to know, do you guys know what a nickajack is?
That's some bastardized Cherokee if I've ever heard some.
I mean, myself, the only thing that I'm familiar with is that Coulter Wall song that includes that name, that phrase in it. But I was hoping you guys would know, because I have no idea. Which, of course, now it turns to Chief Slingin' Beef to tell us about it. But we'll have to wait on him to figure that out. Maybe he knows. But yeah, guys, we went through a little bit of history. There was something else you wanted to bring up, and for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. Please lay it on me.
Well, we definitely have more history. We have lawfare stuff to talk about. It's
oh yes, the lawfare stuff. So a nickajack is someone from the South that fought for the Yankees. So that's
some deep lore there. That's good to know.
Yeah, that is some pretty deep lore. No, please, guys. I kind of wasted some time just jawing about Tennessee. The state kind of fascinates me. Give us a little bit more history.
Okay. All right. Well, I can talk about some East Tennessee stuff and some broader stuff that I think's underestimated in the state. I already talked about the Overmountain Men, so I can list a couple of other people that are from East Tennessee, just to give you an idea of like the historical geography here. I mentioned John Sevier and William Blount earlier. John Sevier was governor of the state of Franklin and then of Tennessee. He was the first governor of the state. And William Blount was the territorial governor. And all of this would have happened around Knoxville, although Franklin would have been a little further east. Knoxville during the 1790s was more or less the capital of territorial expansion, because it was the capital of the old Southwest Territory. North Carolina ceded the land to the federal government and it became a territory. And both John Sevier and William Blount had some like land grant things that happened that made William Blount got forced out of office over a land grant debacle, and John Sevier had something similar, but it wasn't as bad as William Blount. And probably the most famous East Tennesseans are not ones that are from or that ended up in East Tennessee. So Sam Houston and David Crockett were both from East Tennessee, but they're remembered as Texans, even though they got started out politically in Tennessee. Another important character was Andrew Johnson, the president. He was from Greenville, which is a couple hours from here. And can y'all think of any other big East Tennessee names?
East Tennessee specifically, no. Polk was
all right.
Not east, but
Yeah. So probably the other big Tennessee name that I think is highly underestimated is not an East Tennessean, but a Middle Tennessean, and that is James K. Polk. He was president, and Polk is responsible for, during his presidency, the Mexican War was won, and also he probably doubled the size of the United States. But nobody ever talks about James K. Polk. He saw the acquisition of Texas, of the Southwest, and of Oregon during his presidency. And if he wasn't president, it's really not guaranteed that would have happened, because there wasn't necessarily the political will during his presidency. And he just barely became president, too. He was a dark horse candidate, and Andrew Jackson at the end of his life pretty much pulled all the strings he possibly could to make James K. Polk the president. So I think that for an interesting historical figure, James K. Polk is well worth learning about from Tennessee history. I've also mentioned a couple of times the state of Franklin. You'll hear people talk about how Texas was a republic every now and then, but before Tennessee was even a territory in the United States, it actually had 3 independent governments at different times. So probably the first one was the Watauga Association, which was a lot of further East Tennessee counties. Actually, the Knox County had not yet been settled, but Blount County, I believe, would have been on the western edge of it. And that was an association that was created because they had to be able to protect themselves from Indian attacks. And North Carolina was just too distant to do anything with. The second one would have been the Cumberland Compact out near Nashville. When they got there, they had to have some kind of government to protect themselves from Indians and punish theft and that kind of thing. And then the third one would have been the state of Franklin, which the state of Franklin, there was actually a small civil war between John Sevier and John Tipton to establish it, because John Tipton didn't want to break away from North Carolina, and they had that. Just some fun information about unique characteristics within the state. I don't really think there are a lot of states that had little governments like that, and have contributed so much to the territorial expansion during the lifetime of its existence.
Have you read at all about the Free State of Scott up in North Tennessee?
Actually not.
No, that was a pretty funny scenario. They seceded. They seceded from Tennessee after Tennessee. I think before Tennessee seceded, because they knew it was going to happen. And then the Civil War happened. They were not actually readmitted until like 1986,
really?
Technically. So they were like an independent state for like over 100 years.
Did that actually mean anything? Like, did they have their own government, or was it just kind of like, we just didn't do the paperwork?
I think, yeah, they forgot to repeal the proclamation, and then I think someone realized it in like 1986, like kind of like, oh, we got to do that. And they've been, since the 1860s, after the Civil War, they've been functioning as like a normal county government.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of, I don't remember what state it was, but it was legal to shoot Mormons on sight until like the 1980s or something. Which, based. But so you guys want to talk a little bit about lawfare. And, we're all very familiar with lawfare. At this point, you can't not be. What Letitia, I can never remember what her last name is. It's either Letitia James or Letitia Jackson. That's probably just, my racism showing through, that I can't remember which very black name this DA has. But, what she did against VDARE is lawfare, obviously what they're doing against Donald Trump. And, there's a lot of worry, at least I'm worried that some of our friends might fall under lawfare, the Return to the Land guys and the Ridge Runner specifically. But what did you guys want to talk to us about lawfare a little bit?
Well, I wanted to discuss that, we need to, our side needs to be at the point where we're actually weaponizing that against a lot of unfriendly governments. I have a kind of case study I wanted to share. So in the beloved city of Nashville, you basically had a choice between
the law library circulation. That's close.
Sorry, I just heard what sounded like Gleb from Smiling Friends. What was just said?
Sorry, that was our intern. They're not a problem anymore. Anyways, no, there was a case in Nashville, city of Nashville. A lot of building has been going on, so they started a sidewalk permitting fee system, and you basically either had to give the city an easement to build a sidewalk on the property, or you had to pay into the general fund to build more sidewalks across the city. And I got to listen to one of the attorneys that litigated this in court, and it kind of struck me as like there's a lot of small things that I think our guys could not necessarily directly poke at, but put, we need to be working with attorneys that are aligned. We can take a lot of money and a lot of power out of the hands of a lot of unfriendly city governments, is my point.
So how did this piece of lawfare was specifically kind of an extortion racket for sidewalk funding?
Yeah, so it was a Fifth Amendment takings claim. The case is Knight versus Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County. It's pretty interesting to read. There's some good summaries on it. But yeah, I think if our guys are wanting to get politically involved without doing grassroots stuff, this is a very easy and low impact way to kind of put like a plaintiff's attorney that's passionate about this type of stuff onto essentially making law in a lot more of a less democratic way.
So you mean either becoming attorneys or being able to find points of weakness where an attorney can kind of be directed and I'm sorry. Before we get to that, how did that Knight case end?
They won. Yeah, the plaintiffs won. It was the city of Nashville had a very convoluted argument. It was pretty ridiculous. They basically argued that there's a distinction between an administrative taking and a legislative one, and that was just completely bogus. So that was a super easy victory. They got that sidewalk fund. I think was effectively. I think the fund probably still exists, but the means by which they could put money into it is now no longer there.
So they tried to justify this extortion of land by claiming that because it was coming from the executive side as opposed to the legislative side, that it didn't fall under the Fifth Amendment.
Yes, basically. So the seminal case is Nolan versus California Coastal Commission. A guy wanted to build a house on a property in beachfront California, and they were like, you can't do it unless you give an easement for people to get onto the beach. And Fifth Amendment takings claims can be pretty convoluted. So this isn't the only avenue by which you can do this. There's a lot of stuff I don't think we have time to go into, but just if there's something fishy that's going, like if you want to develop a property, for example, and you're getting jammed up by a blue state city, planning commission, and they're saying you have to do X, Y, Z in order to get this permit, reach out to like one of, if you know of like I think like Pacific Legal, they're kind of libertarian, but they'll go to the mat over it.
So Pacific Legal, is this a nationwide thing or is it specifically West Coast?
It's a nationwide thing, and I just bring them up. There's a lot of interest groups out there that they'll either file suit or they'll represent like an aggrieved party, or they'll file a supporting brief. Really, I mean, I think they're one of them. They're on the dock of the legal decisions, like Southeast Legal Foundation as well.
So are you suggesting like there's a lot of avenues of attack to get around or to completely demolish these kind of ridiculous city ordinances and these little petty tyrannies that the Dems and even quite a few GOP city council members and all that like to make us suffer under. And if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying that it's absolutely possible to take them to task to this, but you just have to make the relevant legal groups that would be willing to take this case on, aware that they exist?
Yeah, and it's, this is the thing with lawfare and litigation, is that you kind of got to go in routes that you wouldn't normally think. There's one really funny case in the antitrust world where these guys made a really bad deal, and then they tried to argue that it was the contract that they wrote and agreed to was in violation of antitrust law, so they could get out of it. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of roundabout ways that we can take, aside from just like voting, to kind of, take a little bit of power out of the hands of what you would call petty tyrants. I think that's a good term.
All right. So specifically, you've mentioned Pacific Legal. If one of our brothers listening to this, or a sympathetic tourist, has something in mind that they would like to challenge, could you kind of walk them through a way that they could kind of get the ball rolling?
Yeah, I mean, you could basically reach out to, I would look up what type of specific issue. So if it's something like building, for example, and they're requiring a permit, or they're requiring you to pay a certain amount of money, that's going to be usually a Fifth Amendment takings issue. But there might be a variety of stuff. Administrative law, that impacts a lot of state law issues, and city law, municipal law as well. So really, it comes down to, like, you can just do a simple Google search and see like plaintiffs' attorneys in the area. Get involved with, like, your chapter as well. Get it. Like, if you reach out, if you ask people for help, like, hey, I have an issue, I need like a good plaintiff's attorney that's willing to take on like a constitutional law issue or an administrative law issue, they might point you in the direction of one of those kind of like like those pro bono foundations like Pacific Legal, or they might know a plaintiff's attorney who he might be willing to take the case on and probably make money from it. I think they were able to. I know the attorney that litigated this, his whole pitch was that he was trying to convince a lot of the law students that were there to chase down a career in litigation, mostly because it does pay well. But that's beyond that. There is a pecuniary incentive in it for a lot of plaintiffs' attorneys.
So when we have brothers from across the country reaching out to their regional liaisons who they should be talking to try and get a hold of you, would you be able to take requests for guidance from your fellow OGC members?
Sure.
Wonderful. I'm going to have to double check who your regional liaison is, but I'll be sure to put that in his ear.
I believe it's Pete Q.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. You guys are the next state up, so we're kind of coming up on time here, and I know there's 4 guys there, so I want to kind of refocus back to the chapter itself. When you guys were putting this thing together, and now that you're established and you guys are meeting up, could each of you say a little bit about one of the biggest hurdles you guys had to overcome? And Alex, we can start with you.
Biggest hurdles, I feel like with any sort of organization or movement, the hardest part is reaching that critical mass where you have enough guys in a large enough network that you can start accumulating more people and meeting more people. And I think we actually got to that stage pretty quickly. Before we even became an official chapter, we had met a number of people who had big networks, who ran actually other organizations in parallel. That's one thing I think is surprising, is how many of these groups are out there that don't know each other exist. A bunch of like-minded guys who are doing things sort of on parallel lines and just have no idea that we're out there. And so I would say the biggest challenge was meeting those guys. And then once you do meet them, everything seems to kind of click. That network effect really pays off.
So how would you, if you had any advice on how best to approach other organizations that might be sympathetic to the fraternity that the Old Glory Club is building, how should you approach those other organizations?
Yeah, in terms of approaching them, I don't know if I have a good answer to that. I will say that my mantra is just show up. So if you ever have an opportunity to go to some sort of like-minded networking event, whether that's local politics or some sort of social or cultural event, I recommend you just show up and you go and you talk to people and see what transpires, because I feel like 90% of this is just who shows up and who sticks around. Those are the people who end up winning. Just like you were saying earlier, that the people who show up and vote are ultimately the winners. I think in terms of organizing, the people who just show up to all these events, there's so many events that you can go to in a week, you can really fill your calendar. That's how I would approach it. In terms of specifically talking to people, I think just be cool, man.
Sound and timeless advice. Be sure to wear your chapter pin when you show up too. It's at least a conversation starter. Blues. What have you run into as treasurer or just as a member in general?
Sorry, what was that actually question?
Yeah, so I mean, I asked like what was a hurdle that you experienced getting the organization together, but I guess we can expand the question to a hurdle or just a bit of advice or really anything that you want to say to your brothers across the nation.
Yeah, I would say one of the hurdles we have is maybe not for our chapter, but for adjacent groups that tend to be a little bit more political, that take more people to make a change, is to actually show up. Alex was referring to earlier. It really, the future does belong to those who show up. You don't have to be the best speaker. You don't have to be the most cunning, but you do have to show up. So in terms of joining your Young Republican group or Young Americans for Liberty group or whatever kind of GOP or conservative group that's in your area, I highly suggest you join it. Get to know those people. Just by getting acclimated to the groups around here, I've learned a couple different skills in terms of like ham radio, prepping and stuff like that. Something I would have never thought of before moving here or getting involved with OGC. So I would just say get involved, work on your public speaking, get to networking, just show up.
Yeah, half the work's getting out of your house, right? That's great. I'm glad that that the organization could help provide you, making yourself more of the man that you are now, which is exactly the point of this whole thing. So again, sage advice. Mr. Martins, give us some of your hot takes here.
Well, I think I'll probably say something as to the organizing aspect of being in an organization. I'm sure that there are a lot of chapters out there trying to get started that are trying to meet the like minimum 5-member requirements. But 5 members is good, but it's probably good to have a few more people so that you can have the numbers to do stuff. And then once you get that, it's a really good idea to distribute responsibility. Have a temporary committee to come up with a plan to do something, and make sure that somebody's responsible for the deadline and herding cats and all of that. And if you can get that going, you can do basically whatever you'd like to do as long as you're truly capable of doing it.
Yeah, that's a piece of advice we've heard from some of our brothers in other chapters, that kind of thrusting responsibility onto your members is a good idea, especially some of the younger guys who might not have had the opportunity to prove themselves. It's a great idea it's a good way to give those men some more buy-in and to really prove themselves. And also be sure to, in a very brotherly way, mock them when they're falling behind. Thank you, Mr. Martins, and last but certainly not least, the Glistener.
Thank you. Yes. I think the biggest hurdle, like similar, was getting out to meet, actually do the thing in person. I kind of been following the OGC since about 2023. And then coming out, in 2024 when the election was going on is when I originally met up with Alex, and kind of things went from there. But we live in a very online world, and it's very kind of weird too. You don't know who to trust. You don't know how real things are. But no, it was awesome. Like eventually, meeting a lot of people with similar interests. I work in the legal field, and it was nice. There's not really a lot of people that are, I think, heritage Americans with a similar view, like worldview, in that field at the moment. And I was really pleasantly surprised to find out that that's not the case within the OGC. There's a lot of guys that are chasing down careers in law or are actual attorneys. So that's been really cool. But I don't have much else to add, honestly.
No, I mean that's good to hear. You could get a little reprieve from your fellow attorneys. I know that the biggest issue, I mean, being from New England, you can't throw a stone without hitting an attorney. And something that I've noticed is that a lot of the new attorneys that are being produced by the somewhat prestigious law schools in the area all tend to be insane women, which is a really, really big problem. And it's going to be an even bigger problem as they start taking judgeships. So it is definitely incumbent upon the young men of the Old Glory Club, if they are so inclined, to pursue the legal profession, so that they might be able to do battle at least with the eternal Foyd and keep us out of the longhouse. We're going to look at the super chats, and then we're going to get out of here. Christopher Burks for $2 gives us a salute. Good to see you, sir. Always good to have a salute in the chat. And Don Browning, our favorite Aussie, for 10 Australian dollary dues, is a super sticker of an anthropomorphic lemon dancing with maracas. And I want to add to that description that the look on that lemon's face is one of pure ecstasy. So it's always good to have the mood increased by Ms. Browning. Thank you. Guys, Alex, if somebody, one of the tourists listening, wants to get in touch with your chapter to join up, where should they go?
We have a website. It's overmountain.org. We also have an email address, so you can reach out to contact@overmountain.org, and we'll get that email. So either one of those would be the best route.
Wonderful. And do you guys have any content that you put out, or is it just strictly in-house for now?
Well, yes. So we did pimp our Substacks a little bit here. I think they're in the description. I don't know if we mentioned that, but we have one Substack from our Vice President, Vesper. He's got a great blog there. And then from our very own Mr. Martins.
Yeah, I've got each Martins Gazette and Substack. So.
We also do have a collection from one of our guys in Chattanooga who wrote for the distillery, which was something that Orrin McIntyre wrote for. And this was pre-COVID, I think. It's been a while now, but we have a number of his articles up on our website, overmountain.org. And I'm actually delinquent here. I should have been putting more of his articles up every week because he has a huge oeuvre. But he does stuff like he synthesizes and summarizes stuff like elite theory. So we have an article on there right now where you can read about elite theory, and it's very bite-sized, very quick to consume. And there's dozens of those, and I've been delinquent not putting them up. There's already a few of them up there. So if you want a rehash of stuff like Italian elite theory or some of the other concepts that are really important to our guys in our group, you can read that on overmountain.org.
And I imagine those are perfect size articles for people who are just kind of dipping their toe into the intellectual sphere that we kind of emerged out of. So that's great to hear. Be sure to check out the Overmountain Men at overmountain.org. We'll be sure to put those links in the description. Thank you very much, Overmountain Men. It's great to have all four of you on here. Get a little history lesson. That was great. And thank you, listener, for joining us for another episode of the Chapter House. Next week is the James Oglethorpe Society from the great state of Georgia. Be sure to tune in tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, for Pony Express, and Monday at 8 p.m., every Monday at 8 p.m. for American Spirits, where the biggest questions on American identity are being answered right now. Thank you for the Chapter House.